Okay, so let's get back to our little red ball. One of the things that Flash allows us to do is actually set up layers. So all I'm going to do right here is go to Add, and it looks like another piece of paper, but actually I'm just going to add another layer, and you'll notice that it calls it Layer 2 because it's the second layer we've asked for. The other thing that's important to remember is a lot of times you want to set up your movie length ahead of time, at least with one layer, and notice that it gave me another layer with the exact same length of frames that I had before, so I don't have to go in and insert another frame at layer 2. I'm going to go ahead and change the name, and I'm going to make this a green ball this time. So what we're actually doing is we're working with two layers, and we're going to have two objects on the screen at the same time, and they're going to overlap, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and lock my red ball layer down. In fact, I can turn it off if I want, so now I don't even have to see it. I'm going to select my first frame again, and then I'm going to go in, select this time I'm going to go with a green ball. I'm going to turn this stroke off again because I don't want that, so I'm going to turn my stroke off. And then I'm going to go in and select a new fill color, and I'm going to make it green. So now when I go in, I can make my green ball. And again, I'm just going to come here, and I'm going to hold the Shift key down, and I'm going to make my green ball. I don't have to put it here. I can put it anywhere in the screen I want. In fact, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go off the screen, okay? Because what we see when we save our Flash movie is only what's inside the white area or inside the black bordered area here. I can have any object come in to Flash that I want, and nobody will ever see it come in, okay? So I can stack a bunch of things off to the side here if I want to come in at different times or to go out or to use for different reasons. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to make this ball kind of erratic, so I'm going to every 15 seconds or about every 15 frames or about every second I'm going to have the ball move around. So I'm just going to go through and have the ball move around. I'm going to insert my keyframes here. I'm going to go through and I'm just going to start picking some places where I want my keyframes to go. Okay. So as I go down the mark, you'll notice that I have a lot more keyframes here than I do on the blue ball or on the red ball. We can't see the red ball, but we know it's there because we can see the layers. Okay. So now I'm just going to go back in, and I'm going to move the location of my ball. So I'm just going to kind of go back through and move my ball into different places. So you'll notice that it bounces me back out now every time I go here because that's where my original frame was. Okay. The other way I could have done this is I could have put a keyframe here, moved the ball, put a keyframe here, and then it would have been from the new location. I could have moved it from that. So that was those are a couple of different ways we can do that. We can have the ball bounce off the screen. I'll go to here. I'll make it come back onto the screen, and we'll make it bounce around a little more, and I'll go here. Oops. I'll click in here again. Okay. And then finally, remember, as we're not going to put our last keyframe in here until we get all our motion tweening done. So I'm going to right mouse click here, and I'm going to say create motion tween, and right mouse click here, create motion tween. And I'm just going to continue doing that until I get to the very end, and that's where I'm going to, don't forget, that's where I'll insert my new, my last keyframe. And then I'm going to come here, create motion tween, and then again I'm going to go here, remember, create motion tween. I'm going to copy this location, so I'm going to copy the frame. I'm going to select frame 100 again, and I'm going to paste the frame there. And notice we've got our completed keyframe. And I need to move this one, so we'll kind of go halfway off. One of the things that I can do now, so I'm going to go back, I'm going to take my location, my red key slider, I'm going to play it, so now what I have is a ball that bounces around the screen, goes off the stage, comes back on. Okay, what we don't know is what happens when we put in the red ball. So now we're going to go and hit Control Play, because remember we were oblivious. Boom, we have some interaction that we can play with there. Oops, we just missed it. Oh, we almost caught up there. So we ended up right there. But we do have one little place where there's some interaction, and we can play with that later. But one of the things I want to do right here in this keyframe is maybe I want to change the color. So I'm going to double click on this, and you'll notice what happens is this box, that circle was round, and you'll notice that it says tween 4, so I'm playing with the tween. But I'm going to go back to the scene and show you what I mean. This ball is a solid object. I can't play with it. I can't morph it or change it or do anything unless I want to break it apart. And we'll talk more about that later. But if I want to change the color, I have to double click on it. And now it gives me the ability to play with this ball where it was before. Now I'm going to come down here into properties, because I'm not going to go back up to my colors. I'm going to change my color here. And I'm going to make this ball blue now. And let's go back and see what happens to our ball when we go to blue. So if we come here, you'll notice now that what happens is I change the ball. How did that happen? Because we used the same ball in each one, okay, we might have, this is the same ball in every keyframe no matter what I do to it, okay? So unless I'm going to change this with an alpha screening or alpha tweening, that's the way it's going to stay. So I want you to know that if you change the color of the ball, it's going to change it in all of the frames. Okay, and as we start getting further in Flash, you'll see that there's a way to change that so that it changes color, and we do that by what's calling an alpha tweening. And that'll be coming up next. So I noticed though I can have a little fun right here in this tweening section. So we can add a little pop bang action. So I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm going to call it explosion. Okay. And you'll notice what I want to know is, where do the balls hit? So I'm starting to get some intersection here. So I'm going to click, and I'm going to insert a blank keyframe right here, because I really don't know what I want to do yet. And I'm going to move this one down, and I want to know where they exit. So I'm going to go ahead and throw in another keyframe, blank keyframe here. So now I have two blank keyframes. I don't really need this one yet, but I'm just going to go ahead and put it in for now. So this one, and I'll probably regret doing that, but that's okay. So this right now in this keyframe, I want to do something. I want to make a little action. So I'm going to use my brush right here, and I'm going to go to my fill color. Oops. I'm going to go back to my fill color, and I'm going to look at it and say, I don't want it to be that. Maybe I want it to be gray. So what's going to happen is, while we're in here, we can start to do some little explosion or puff of smoke or something that looks like it's going to happen. So now you'll notice what happens is, in this area, okay, it doesn't really look like it's an explosion, but I think you get the idea that it looks like we've made contact, and as the balls come out of being in contact, okay, the explosion leaves. We can be a little more finessed, and as we start to learn Flash better, we'll do that. But what I want to do is, I'm going to actually take my explosion layer, grab it, and put it down below. So you'll notice now that, oops, my explosion right here happens after. So I'm just going to delete this ball here. And you'll notice that my explosion layer now happens here. So if I don't like that explosion, all I have to do is take this, clear the keyframe, and it takes it out, so I don't have to worry about it. And I'm just going to insert another blank keyframe, and I can go in, and again I can use my brush. I can use a smaller brush size, which might be just the thing we need here, and I can start to create a little bit of a few lines here. And notice what happened to the lines, because they are under, the explosion is on the bottom, these things currently are on top. Okay. If I want to add more lines or make the contact bigger, I'm going to insert another blank keyframe here, and I'm going to start to add more contact. And what's going to happen is now I'm going to try and give it a real drama and give it a little more explosion or something to that effect. So what's happening now is we see, so as we run it, we can see that there's this contact that's starting to take place here, and it goes through. And probably what I want to do is maybe reduce my impact a little. Okay. Now if I want to extend this, all I have to do is right mouse click, or I'm sorry, click on this. I'm going to click just on this frame right here and drag it out. So what I've done now is I've made the explosion too much, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to add another keyframe. So I'm going to clear that. But I can add, click on this keyframe right here, drag it out, and I can make my explosion go even longer. I probably don't want to do it that far, but I think at this point right here, okay, as we start to get to the next one, I'm just going to go in and insert a blank keyframe, and I'm going to make my little lines less now, because we're starting to get away from the impact. We have a little, but not a lot. Okay, so now what this looks like is it goes like this. Okay, not very fluid, but if we want to do that, remember, if we want to go in and make this, okay, create motion here, I go in here, I create the motion, and now what I have is this motion tweening taking place, and it looks like it's moving. Okay, so you can try something like that if you want, and that just gives us, introduces you to working with a couple of layers and creating some contact. If you have any questions, go ahead and email me.